365, aired on Radio Turks and Caicos 89.1 FM. Today, we have a very special guest. She's Dr. Holly Hamilton, the Director of Meteorology for the Turks and Caicos Islands National Weather Service at the TCI Airports Authority. Dr. Hamilton, welcome.
Thank you, Mrs. Gordon. Pleasure to be here.
Great having you. We start off by asking you some very crucial questions. You know, we're in the hurricane season, a lot has been happening. So let's get right in. What's the forecast for the 2024 Atlantic hurricane season?
Okay, so NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, predicted above normal activity in the Atlantic Basin this year for the hurricane season. They projected 17 to 25 total named storms, 8 to 13 of those becoming hurricanes, and that's including 4 to 7 major hurricanes. And major hurricanes are hurricanes that are category 3, 4, or 5. This is well above the average. The average numbers for hurricane activity in the Atlantic Basin is 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes. So we're looking towards a pretty busy season.
Pretty busy indeed. Dr. Hamilton, what factors do you think are influencing this year's hurricane season predictions?
So the hurricane predictions were mostly influenced by the near record warm sea surface temperatures or ocean temperatures in the Atlantic Ocean. They've been particularly warm this year. Also, the development of La Nina is projected to occur between July to September. Also, reduced Atlantic trade winds, less wind shear. All of these different factors tend to favor tropical cyclone formation.
Thank you. Does climate change impact hurricanes frequency and intensity?
So there's been a lot of research when it comes to how climate change has been impacting hurricane activity. And what we can say is that the tropical cyclone hazards have been getting more severe. We've been picking up that signal. Now, human-induced climate change does two things. It's warming our oceans globally, and we also see that in the Atlantic Basin as well. It's also warming our atmosphere. Now, we all know the warm ocean, that's what fuels these tropical cyclones or hurricanes. So you get warmer ocean that leads to the potential for stronger tropical cyclones. So with studies, we've been seeing that we're getting increased proportion of the strongest hurricanes, so your category 4 and 5 hurricanes, and that's being globally projected to occur. Also, the frequency of rapid intensification, that has increased. And so with rapid intensification, that potentially causes less time for persons to prepare. At 1 minute, you're seeing a Cat 3 coming your way, and then in the next you check it's a Cat 5. And then the other thing that climate change is also doing, with a warmer atmosphere, it holds more moisture. Mm-hmm. So with that, now what we're seeing or what we're projecting is that the rainfall rates with these hurricanes are projected to increase. Mm-hmm. So you'll get heavier rainfall with these tropical cyclones, and heavier rainfall would lead to more inland flooding. And then finally, with climate change, we all know we're seeing sea level rise. So your sea level starts rising, you have a strong hurricane coming in, that makes it more prone for storm surge flooding. So you get more coastal floodings. So this is where climate change is making the hazards that are associated with tropical cyclones more dangerous.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned human-induced climate change. Could you elaborate a little more on that for us?
So when we say human-induced climate change, we're talking about, so the signal that everybody knows, that hockey stick graph where temperatures have been rising exponentially since the introduction of big industries and factories, is basically human producing greenhouse gases, and the abundance of greenhouse gases that's been pumped into the atmosphere, leading to the warming of the atmosphere.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hamilton. How does an extremely active hurricane season impact residents of the Turks and Caicos Islands?
So this is an interesting question. First, when I thought about it, I picture, you have a target and you have darts. You throw a whole bunch of darts, at some point you're going to hit, a couple places on that target. And then I thought to look back in history and see what history says. And I checked the 4 top years in terms of activity to see what was it like in terms of the TCI being impacted by a storm. The most active was 2020 with 30 named storms. And that's when we had Isaias pass us as a Cat 1. The next one was 2005 with 28 named storms. And we had Rita and Alpha. They passed the Turks and Caicos as tropical depressions. In 2021, there were 21 named storms, and we had Fred pass by as a tropical depression. And then 2023, where there was 20 named storms, we had Franklin pass to the east of us, just to the east of us, as a tropical storm. So those are just the 4 top that I pulled out, and we see that for those years, we at least got impacted by one system. Now, someone might look at that and said, oh, they were weaker systems. They weren't much to worry about. But I want us to not focus too much on that point, because it only takes 1 year. And it could be this year, it could be the next, where we can have a catastrophic storm come by. But with it being an extremely active, or rather to say above normal or above average season, we just need to be cognizant of the fact that, there is a chance that we can experience a system. No matter what intensity it is, we should still be prepared.
Thank you, Dr. Hamilton. So with that being said, what are some of the key preparedness tips for this season? And is there anything that we should be doing differently or doing more of?
So the way I see it is that preparation should be the same every year. These different agencies come out and say, to predict what the season will be like, whether it'll be active or above average or below average. But we shouldn't pay too much attention to those terms, because we know hurricane season comes every year, and every year for those 6 months, there is a chance that you can be impacted by a system. And so we just need to do the things that we know we need to do to prepare ourselves. Make sure we have our home insurance, make sure we stock up on non-perishable foods, make sure we have family emergency plans so everybody knows what to do in the event that something serious is about to happen. So we just need to prepare ourselves accordingly, no matter what the predictions are.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hamilton. And that is why we have, radio shows like these. And of course, I want to use the opportunity to encourage the public to download the DDME Alert app, visit the TCI National Weather Service social media pages, just to ensure that we continue to keep the public informed. I know disaster risk management, hurricane awareness requires partnership. And I know an important partner is the Bahamas National Weather Service. What is the relationship between the TCI Airport Authority National Weather Service and the Bahamas Department of Meteorology?
So ever since taking up my position of Director of Meteorology, I must say that partnership has grown from strength to strength. Bahamas has always been there. They've been responsible for issuing the tropical cyclone advisories and watches and warnings for the Turks and Caicos Islands. But now that we have a meteorologist on the ground, it really helped to solidify now that communication between the Turks and Caicos Islands and the Bahamas. We can speak the same language. And so from day one, we established, how are we going to work together, especially in the hurricane season, to make sure the messaging is going out accordingly, that we include the local weather information so that we can, inform the public a little bit better. And then being the fact that as Director of Meteorology, currently I'm also the only meteorologist or forecaster in the country, just making sure that I manage myself so that, when my country needs me most, that I can perform at my best. So we're always keeping an eye on what is happening in the basin. And at any point in time that we feel that it's necessary to issue a hurricane alert, that would be one of the first things you would see, that product you will see, to alert the public that there's this system out there. We need to pay attention to what's going on. It could possibly affect, our waters, our shores. And once they feel the need to issue that, that will activate now the National Weather Service to put out the local weather advisories. And we try to do that twice a day at 9 a.m. and another at 6 p.m. And then they will continue to do their 6 hourly because they are 24/7 service. So they have the capacity to do that. But we just would interject with some local weather information that we can provide to our public.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Hamilton, and we certainly appreciate the service that you offer to the people of the Turks and Caicos Islands. You mentioned the whole matter of information. What are some of the greatest challenges that you think we face in informing the public?
I would have to say effectively communicating the risk to the public. So meteorologists are essentially scientists. We are deep into the science, but then we have to pull ourselves out and make sure that we communicate effectively to the public what we're seeing, how this is going to impact you, so that they can act accordingly. And this has been the sort of the paradigm shift in the field anyway, trying to shift towards impact-based forecasting. So not only telling the public what's going to happen, there's going to be 3 to 6 inches of rain or so forth, but communicating how that will affect you. Well, you're going to get 3 to 6 inches of rain, but that's going to cause flooding along Leeward Highway, somewhere. So, just giving the public information that will be helpful so that they know how to act accordingly. And then, of course, with communicating, also now being mindful that Turks and Caicos Islands is somewhat of a melting pot. You have persons here of different languages. So making sure the message is going out in a way that everybody understands, because we have people here that may not speak English well or can't read English well. So, getting to the point where everybody can get the messaging and also understand the message.
I've noticed you do like a 3-day forecast and you can look at it. There are some visuals. You want to expand a little more on that for me?
Yeah, so that's another way where you can help get the message across, because if people see a picture, you're saying that it's going to be partly sunny or sunny, and they see a picture seeing the sun, then okay, they may not be able to read the words, but they can look at it and see, well, it's going to be sunny this day, or it's going to be rainy, or there's going to be thunderstorms and so forth. Those are some of the ways where we can get the message across.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I have just one more question for you. And I'm sure our listeners would really want to know, what is it that the residents can do to increase their levels of preparedness and be informed?
So to answer that, I just say, make sure that you're paying attention to the official sources of information, and that's coming from regional down to local. So regional, you make sure you're paying attention to the National Hurricane Center, information coming from Bahamas Department of Meteorology. Now, sometimes there may not be information specific to Turks and Caicos in there. So that's when you look at the local sources. You pay attention to what the Weather Service is saying, and also information coming from DDME. I will advise persons to be very careful of what we in the meteorological field called armchair meteorologists, or those hype personalities on social media. I know my YouTube algorithm is flooding my feed with, those persons, because this is the time where everybody wants to be a hurricane forecaster, and you see all kind of videos with persons trying to give information. And so you have to be careful. The average man may not be able to sift through the noise to make sure they're listening to someone reliable and providing factual information. So that's why I started out my answer by listing, the official sources of information. I was telling someone the other day, for me, my litmus test when it comes to persons like that on social media is, at the end of their presentation, don't say to you to refer to your official local sources. I personally have a problem with that, because then I feel like they are then capitalizing on persons coming to them for information. Because at the end of the day, someone somewhere, wherever in the world, can't speak to what is going to exactly happen in the Bahamas or in Jamaica or in Turks and Caicos Islands. They may hardly know Grand Turk different from Providenciales. and they definitely would know where Q-Town is in regards to Leeward. I can't stop people from watching what they want to watch, but at the end of the day, they need to refer to their local official sources for the information. And then finally, so to help you with that, TCI National Weather Service, we're on all the different social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube as well. And we also have a WhatsApp broadcast channel for those persons who like to get their information through WhatsApp. And then of course, I have to endorse the DDME Alert app. Make sure you have that on your phones because they would also push information from the Weather Service through that feed.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hamilton, and I can attest that it is a partnership. We're on social media platforms as well, and we share information with each other. Thank you so much, Dr. Hamilton. I guarantee that you'll be sitting in my chair for a while. You will be my guest because there's so much for us to talk about as we go through this hurricane season. My listeners, we invite you to keep your dials locked to Radio Turks and Caicos 89.1 FM.